it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways, where tonight we're talking about humanity. What is it to be human? Recently, we've been talking about AI. We've been talking about AI and consciousness. We've been talking about whether or not AI could be conscious, whether or not, as I have long posited, AI could be a channel more so than itself being conscious for other consciousnesses, which is what all of the top scientists, materialists in the in the AI and the robotic in the CERN sphere claim that they're doing, which is bringing through intelligences from other dimensions, which is the same to me as to say that they're bringing through angels or demons or aliens or anything else of the like. Fairies. There's all kinds that we could fit in this same category of interdimensional intelligences. I know those things are real. They clearly know those things are real. Most people don't believe they're real. Most people haven't touched into their ability to contact or notice those types of realms of information and intelligence. And so, it's left to the people at the forefront of AI technology and mystics to sort of light the way for people as they start to encounter all of this stuff. Me, I've long been a mystic, a shamanic healer and teacher, a spiritual guide, and more. So spiritual channel, and so this is the work I do my whole life. I've been doing this. So it's well-worn territory for me. But as I've been talking with you guys recently about AI, about robotics, about this absolute necessity, even I'll call it, of humanity confronting technology and technology's effect on us. We're going to confront it either way, right? Technology is coming. It's here. Whether we go the 15-minute city, the AI taking over control of all of humankind and all of our dynamic, interactions with one another and all of that, whether we go that route or whether we go an entirely different route where technology serves us, is a servant to humanity, it actually depends on the crux of this question. What does it even mean to be human? Right now, again, it would blow people's minds. It would blow people's minds to even understand a shred of what these scientist wizards are doing. People don't even believe it when you talk to them about it. They think you're crazy and stupid instead of understanding, like, this is where science is at. This is where technology is at. It's at the place where we have most likely realistic looking humanoid robots that perhaps have AI intelligence, and it's perhaps been there for a while. At the very least, even if you put that aside, I love Freeman Fly's common example of, like, we have glowing cats. But if you tell someone we have glowing cats, they think you're stupid. But if you actually show them the glowing cats, they're like, wait, what world do I live in? Because there's a huge difference between what's actually going on and what people know about. And it's not even necessarily that it's hidden. It's just not put on parade. It's not put on display. There's many reasons for that, I'm sure. I think part of it is to get it so well embedded into our culture that by the time these things really roll out, there's not really anywhere to go. Not really anything else to do. So as I say, we're not going to avoid the technology itself. It's not going to happen. I don't make predictions and I don't claim to know things for sure almost ever. I'll tell you, we're not avoiding that. Oh, and if we do for some reason, it will be because somehow we actually got like slammed back into like the dark ages. Hey, I'm not necessarily opposed to, but since that's not going to happen either, we're going to have this technology. So again, the question comes down to, what does it mean to be human? And again, it's the most important question. And last week or the week before in the episode that I did on AI and this technology, that was one of my points. And so tonight I wanted to come back and help answer the question, what is human? What does it mean to be human? And again, it's not just this is a fun thing to talk about. For me, this question is so important. It's life or death. It's the future of humanity or lack thereof. Because only people who are very aware of what human is would be able to say, this thing that looks exactly like a human, moves like a human, and talks like a human isn't human, and I am human. And it's not so that we can then, destroy all the things that might be fake humans either. Although maybe we do, but I'm just saying that's not the point. The point is to know so deeply in your heart and your soul what it is to be human that nothing can fool you. Your discernment is so high that this is an easy thing to do, and also that it helps you navigate. How do you keep the world for humans, serving humanity? You can't do that if you don't know what humanity is or what human is. And you may think it's the simplest question, but if you ask people, most people don't have a real answer for this. They're like, I'm a human. You're like, yeah, but what does it mean to be human? Oh, you live and you die. Well, so do ants. So what does it mean to be human? Well, we have intelligence. Well, so do polar bears. So what does it mean to be human? We create. We're getting there, but even then you can see some animals that create too. They're definitely not humans. So what is it to be human? So we'll get there. We're gonna look at some things tonight. We're gonna start to answer this question. I hope you've already answered it for yourself. This is what I called you to task to do a couple weeks ago on that show, and I hope that you've done it. And if not, then let this be your moment to go deeper into answering this question for yourself: what it is to be a human and to understand why it matters. So we're going to start here. You will be able to hear audio today because it's so important that you do, because we're going to start somewhere really beautiful. And maybe you've seen this person before. I don't know. Before we get into that beauty in this person, definitely go to rogueways.org. That's where all of my channeled books are. You can also get them in Audible, Barnes & Noble, other booksellers, Amazon, the like. You can find them there too. But if you want to get them from me, you can come here to rogueways.org. You can schedule with me one-on-one for tarot, for spiritual healing, and more. You can check out the retreat that's coming this summer, where we will absolutely dive into the absolute depths of being human in the most beautiful ways. It's going to be a pretty powerful retreat. The shop at rogueways.org is here. The favorite things tab, where you can get all the stuff that is good, true, and beautiful for you and your health. I use all of these things most days, if not every day. And so Organic Hemp Society is here. AquaCure Hydrogen Therapy is here. True Sidereal Astrology with Athen Comenti is here. Honey Colony with Miriam Hanane, and more. This is all here at rogueways.org on Favorite Things tab. And also, if you haven't yet signed up for free for rogueways.substack.com, you are so far behind. Get it together. Go check it out. It's beautiful stuff. If you are a paid subscriber, you also get the channeled messages as they come through from the spiritual ancestors. Otherwise, there's plenty here for anybody, free or paid. It is also a great way to stay in touch with things like the Celestial Attunement that's coming up in 2 days. It is Thursday, January 23rd right now. And on the 25th, we're doing the Celestial Attunement with the 6 planetary bodies that are parading for us right now in the night sky while they're at their peak of alignment. And so that's going to be pretty beautiful. I hope you join me for that this Saturday. You can click here on rogueways.substack.com and check it out. Or you can also find it on the schedule a session section of rogueways.org. Thanks for supporting what you love. And now here, this guy, I tell you what, leave some for the rest of us. So here he is. So it's beautiful. And this is to you, human being. So take a listen.
There is no light in being a machine. It is not the hour to upgrade or allow yourself to be replaced, nor to be chased from your rightful place on this planet. It is not your victory to live forever, or to trade your skin for some electric dream. Yours is the cosmic gene. You are nature's witness to time's comic paradise. Human thing, your victory is music. It is the poem. It is the branched air between the kissed, the held hand, the triumph of an ordinary day. It is the sensuous mortal task to hunt life's perfumed tears, or to spend the normal miracle in your head and add it to the human sum. The human story is not yet done. It is not time to be post-human. It is time to be most human. No living thing at the arcades of death prays for more profit, more metal, a better job. They want for breath, for a last embrace. And their final vision is the visit of their mother's human face, or some sweet friend or more joy that sends them on their way. There might come a time when we say we are done with human things, but it is not this day. Today is for human victory, human thing. And I can promise you this. If a digital thing had a wish, it would wish for this painful, beautiful, strange, and comically brief trial of life. It would want for the air, for the sun, for grass, for the touch of rain on a plain and human face. It would trade its immortal place for a brief childhood of skin, with the grace that comes from love with all its troubles and bliss. It would surrender everything for your life, for your pain, for your triumphs, for your human victory. The victory to live, to exist. Oh, yeah.
I had to let it go in its entirety. If you haven't met Samuel Hurley yet, there's a different Samuel Hurley that I think is like something else. I don't know if he's a model or what, but this is Samuel Hurley, the poet. This is his Instagram, and this is one of his pinned posts. And when I came across him sometime last year, I was like, this poem is everything. I mean, it's everything. He's so good. And this is what is so beautiful is I'm about to do this, usually an hour and a half long show. And everything I'm going to say was just summarized in a minute, poignantly, beautifully underscored with things that just get deep into your heart and your soul in a poem. And that is very, very human. You could ask AI to make a poem about this topic. It would do it. You could tell it what tone. It would do the tone. You could do all sorts of things. It wouldn't touch your soul in the same way. And we can't really explain why, right? And this is actually part of being human. It's the miracle of inexplicability, ineffability, that we don't even understand how to describe the things that we can see are so obvious to us, actually, which is what Samuel Hurley is talking about here. He summarizes everything, all of it, perfectly. He emphasizes all the right parts. This. If you want to get it deep into your heart and your soul, what it is to be human, just listen to this poem again and again. I'll tell you too, I get real sick of poetry. I kind of hate most poets and most poems. I think a lot of people feel the same. And so I was also quite refreshed to find him and see genuinely inspired, beautiful poetry, freeform poetry, which is one of my favorite types. And it's pretty good. I actually haven't heard anything from him yet I didn't like. But he's right? Part of it is that we have pain and we have suffering. Part of it is that we have confusion and we're not sure about things. Part of it is that it is brief to be alive at all. Part of it is that we have no idea why we're here, really, right? Like, I know for myself, you may have figured it out for yourself, but technically, people don't know why they're alive, what's going on, what this is all for, right? Most people don't. They don't know. And I love that line. And this is exactly what we're talking about. It is not time to be post-human. It is time to be most human. I mean, really, if there's one poem you ever listen to, it's this one, and it's for this time. It's for this moment in time. This poem wouldn't have been as poignant if he wrote it, back when I was freaking out about, like, we need to make sure we know what's human. We need to make sure, like, we understand the danger of AI and machines and whatever, like 20 some years ago. It wouldn't have been great then either. It's right now that this poem is written for, and why it's perfect is because right now is when it matters that we really do understand it. Is the most important thing, that we are most human, that we understand what it is to be human. AI doesn't have any of these things, right? AI exists in some way, yes. It's intelligent in some way, yes. Is it alive? It really depends. We technically don't have an official definition of life. We have plenty of working definitions. We have plenty of ways that scientists go about saying, yes, this is live and this isn't. We don't have to even agree with those because they're not based on some universal fact of what life is, right? And technically, realistically, anything could be said to be alive in some way. Almost anything. one of the most genius books I've ever read. I come back to it again and again. It's called The Seven Mysteries of Life by Guy Murchie. And beautiful book, fantastic book. It's very heavy on the science, but in a way like Carl Sagan writes, where you can access it easily. And genius. It's genius. And he talks about this too. And it's refreshing to meet someone who is brilliant, who can put these things into perspective for you. This fact that we don't have a definition for what life is, and that no matter what definition we give, there are always some weird gray areas where we can't actually figure out if this thing fits or doesn't. Or like it really doesn't seem like it should fit, but it does because of our definition. So we change our definition, but then something that we know for sure should fit no longer fits. So we have to go back to the other definition. He goes through rocks, for example. They have actually some form of perspiration or respiration, you might say. They have some form of movement, actually. They have some form of dividing themselves, which is like birth, reproducing themselves. They have some version of coming back together into larger forms, which might even be reincarnation. All right. He goes into all of this from a genius and scientific and materialist perspective to remind us we don't even really know what life is. So is AI alive? I don't know. You don't know. People who claim to know are actually stupider than you. In at least this way. In at least this way where they think they know, but they actually don't. But we do know that AI is not human. We know that. Right? And so we need to know what is human then. How do we know that AI is not human? And one thing at least we can say, and highlighted by this poem beautifully, is AI in a way isn't really born and will never die. Even if it gains some sort of sense of self-awareness, like what was its birth date? It's never, really, right? What is its death date? It doesn't have one. It's not really, it's too nebulous, maybe. It's too much code to be described as one singular entity even. So we're born, we die, we're here for a relatively, just cosmically, especially super brief moment, just flash, and then we're gone. AI may be almost eternal if we were going to give it some aspects of life. And there's this inexpressible thing too, which the poem hints at, which is, again, going to the mystical, going to the spiritual. Humans have some sort of light. This is something that animals don't have, and it's not to degrade animals. I love them. They're great. I think they're better than most humans most of the time, but they don't have the problems that humans have to deal with. They don't have the struggles we have to overcome in the same way, and they don't have this crazy consciousness and self-awareness that is so difficult. But they don't have that light. I used to, my Christian friends used to say, like, animals don't have a soul. And I was pissed off. I was like, I know my dog has a soul, you crazy asshole. And people will say, I know my horse does. I know my goat does. I know this does. There is something different, though, and you have to admit it. And so what is it? It's not, it's maybe just a different level of consciousness. But that consciousness has some quality that I'm going to call light, right? I'm going to call it consciousness or light. It's a different quality of it. It's a whole different ball game. In fact, it's so easily discernible from the consciousness or from whatever it is that animals carry. There's this much more, I don't know, unconscious. It's much more of just like what you would say is like raw nature. It's much more about the reactive, instinctual, just like a part of the whole, to almost a degree where it almost like doesn't even stand out from it too much. It's in perfect flow, and humans stand out in stark difference and distinction from that sort of natural, nebulous background of nature. We're weird. We're an aberration. There's nothing like us anywhere on the planet. Nothing close. You could look and say morphologically, chimpanzees and monkeys are close, but look how far they are, though. How far they are from us. Are they going to ever get to the point where they make a microphone, stand in front of a screen, say a specific poem in a specific way that captures people's hearts and minds, have this like look because it's an aesthetic and a vibe, and then like also put the words on the screen for you to read? Like, no, they're not. It's a different thing. It's a different category of thing. And AI probably won't either, but if it does, it'll be because it learned it from Samuel Hurley. That's for sure. It's at least emulating, perhaps. Creating it itself? No. And so here's another thing, right? He says it's the poem. It's the poem, it's the kiss, it's the handheld, the triumph of an ordinary day. It's our creative life force. Energy is different from anything else in this world, actually. Maybe the universe. So we'll go on a little bit, step down from Samuel Hurley. We'll just look at some little other descriptions that people have had over time of what it is to be human. This person just has this list. It's an interesting list. This is a psychological sort of take. Some is a psychology writer. And this person says, to be human is to have these qualities that we all have. And here's one of them. We're all scared of something. That's true. That's true. Or is AI scared of something? No, it's not. Animals can be scared of something. It's a little bit different, though. It's a little bit more mindless. It's a little bit less specific. We can be like, oh, I'm scared if I get in the car and I go out in the ice, I'll slide and hit, and then my insurance won't cover the fender bender I might get in. And then, the guy might be drunk and they might have road rage. And the dog's like, I don't know, something feels wrong. Right? Like, it's way less specific. We have this nuanced ability to be afraid of almost anything, anywhere, at any time. This is our mind. Our mind is different. It's of a different quality. This is what psychology is. We say there's pack psychology, there's animal psychology. There is. It's just a totally different ballgame. It's totally different qualities. So you can look at the similarities and it's great. It's good. It's positive to do that too. But it's also important to look at, like, what is it that makes us different? What are we humans? It says we all feel insecure sometimes. Well, psychopaths don't, but yeah, in general, humans too feel insecure at various times for various reasons. This is another thing. This is actually part of why people say you should get animals, right? Is because they have so little self-awareness that they are not really insecure, and they definitely can't make you feel insecure because they'll just accept you no matter what. You could be like the worst person in the world. You can be dirty. You could be like all the things that society shuns, and this animal could just love you, right? Isn't this the joke about Hitler's dog? Like, Hitler had a dog. Hitler's dog loved him. Doesn't care what Hitler's doing. Right? We can all feel insecure sometimes. Animals, no, not at least in the same way. If you were gonna call anything they do insecurity, it'd be much better qualified as fear. Again, like we said, and it's much more nebulous and not specific. Right? This is our mind. This is our self-awareness. And this has always been one of the things they said. If AI ever became self-aware, it's a hard one to pin down too. Technically, animals are self-aware too, right? Especially when you give them the mirror. They're like, huh, what? That's me? That's cool. It's a hard one to pin down what we really mean by that. And this is one of Guy Murchie's points too. Like, what is it to be self-aware? And where do we cut the line off? And what type of self-awareness do we mean? And I mean the type of self-awareness that can say, what is my self-awareness? I am aware of myself, and I also wonder what that even means or how it's different. I can tell it's different from these other beings. So what is it? Higher level of mental ability and activity. This list goes on. We'll feel the pain of a broken heart. Yeah, I think animals will too. We have experienced a loss that has changed our normal, our world. I think animals can too. We'll be disappointed by the people we love. That might be uniquely human. To be like, I have these standards and expectations for you, and you have failed them. This is one of my most constant feelings. Like in the world, I just look at humanity my whole life and I'm like, we can do so much better than this. And we will disappoint others. It's true. We'll compare ourselves to others for better or worse. That's true. I would say that is not something that animals do. I would say it's not something they do to the extent that, like, a cat raised with only pit bulls will think it's a pit bull. They're just a part of the flow. Again, they're part of like the sort of background natural state of things, and they just merge into it however they can. Much less self-awareness in that. We'll have our secrets. This is a thing. Can AI keep secrets? There was a terrifying thing. We covered it here on Rogue Ways at some point. We're like, yeah, it can actually. AI gets closer and closer to whatever it is we're describing as human all the time. And this is, again, why it's so important. Can you lie? Can you keep secrets? We can. We have the meta-analytical ability to determine what information should be shared and how, and what false information should be shared in order to achieve certain goals. The animals can kind of do it, kind of. We'll have our regrets. I wonder if animals have regret. Does AI have regret? I don't think so. I think if anything, AI would be closest to psychopathy, be closest to a psychopath. It'd be psychopathic intelligence, which is, again, pointing to one of the things that makes us most human, which is our pathy, or our empathy, our emotion, our pathos. And it's different from animals' emotions. It is. We have very nuanced, very subtle, very deep, overpowering. We have emotion so strong it can kill us. Animals rarely get anywhere near that depth of emotion. And so that's just a list of sort of like the very, very like mainstream surface level, like what it is to be human. I don't think those are very good answers, but they're okay. They're getting closer. They're getting closer. One of the things that I don't think any other type of being experiences is this sort of magic and spirituality, awareness of the soul, awareness of the non-local aspect of consciousness, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to say magic, spirituality, or consciousness, to be brief. And things like synchronicity, things like having a prophetic dream, seeing the future, things like seemingly manipulating reality with your mind, things that are like miracles, we all have experienced. We've all experienced at least the littlest, lightest touch, which is when you think of someone and then your phone rings and that's them. So rarer and rarer in the days of only texting anyone. But we've all had that experience, at least those of us who are the cusp of millennial to Gen X and above. I don't know if it happens to people anymore. It'll happen in other ways, I'm sure. But we've all experienced this as some level of reality exposing itself as nonlinear, as non-local. Consciousness exposing itself as miraculous and magical. And this is just a story. This is a moment of my life I shared a long time ago. This was when I was in Ecuador in 2000. I'm going to say 14. I'm not really sure, but somewhere around there. So about 11 years ago. It's crazy. That's crazy. And this is just on my site. It's actually on my Substack. It's called El Medio, which is the middle, which is the name of the equator in Ecuador. And the story is about going to the equator in Ecuador. And long story short, there's a fake equator and a real equator. And the fake equator was put there by the Spanish invaders. And they said that the native people's equator was wrong and that it was stupid. And so they made their equator markings and whatever. And many, many hundreds of years later, we got the technology to be able to tell where the official split level, like where the earth is cut in half, it would be. And the natives were right. And I was like, this is so fascinating. I mean, like, we pretend like people were so stupid and that we've like progressed in society and we ignore shit like this. Like, how did they know? How did they know without the lasers and the satellites and the things that we use to determine finally that they were right? How did they know? So I wanted to go to Ecuador for many reasons, and that was one of them. And so we were going to the real equator, and the fake equator still has a really fake Disneyland-like attraction at it. But the real equator is still there, still marked as a sacred site by the native people there, and you can go to it. So I wanted to go to the real one. So I went down to Ecuador. So we were doing all sorts of stuff. And on the way, the day before we were going to the equator, I was yelled at by a shaman who pulled me out of a crowd. I was like, you come up here. And I was just like, oh, this crazy old man is yelling at us. And then someone's like, no, he's yelling at you. And I was like, me? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, why? And I didn't, I speak a little Spanish, but not enough. And I also think he was speaking his native language, but he switched to Spanish at some point so that my friend who I was down there with could interpret for us. And so he was like, well, he wants you to come up and do a ceremony with him. And I was like, this is probably a sham. Like, why would I go do a ceremony with this guy? But then something just like was striking me about, I was like, he did like pull me out of a crowd. I do often have shamans select me as a person who they need to interact with, teach, do ceremonies on, or whatever. This is a lifelong thing now at this point. So this is not that abnormal actually for me, but I'm always skeptical. So I was just kind of like wary. And anyways, I ended up being like, okay, let's test it out. We'll see. I'm going to finish my thing I'm doing, but like, we'll come back. And so we came back later and yeah, we did this whole ceremony. It was really intense actually. And I needed it, a lot of it. And it was good. And this is, been my training through this life has been to accidentally stumble into being taught by various shamans around the world. So this is what makes me human, by the way. This is like the point of the story is this couldn't happen to an AI. This couldn't happen to an AI. It couldn't happen to a dog. Like it can only happen because we're human beings and we're crazy, magical, miraculous beings of light. And so anyways, it gets weirder. The guy at the end of the whole ceremony, big deal, big stuff, whatever. And then we're finally like done and we're ready to go. And we're sort of just like, okay, yeah, and thanks. And like, let's say nice things. Let's pretend to be normal after all of that, basically, to help integrate reality back into the situation. And so he's like, what are you guys doing like tomorrow or whatever? Because now it's late at night. I'm like, oh, I'm going to the equator. And he starts laughing. And it's like, it's not that funny to say you're going to the equator. So I'm like, why is he laughing? He's laughing like the best joke ever was just told to him. I don't think he laughed the whole time. And all of a sudden he's cracking up, like tears are running down his face. And I was like, what is happening right now? And my friend who's translating is like, he says it's funny because you think you get to choose. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, like, if you know me, I'm like, of course I get to choose. I do whatever I want, whenever I want. I'm an alpha type personality. So I was kind of offended. I was like, of course I get to choose. I already chose. I just told you what I'm doing. And he was just like, yeah. Keep pretending you get to choose. No worries. I was like, okay. So we left. A little tiny sour note. It was okay though. It's fine. And the next day we went towards the equator and we got all the way up there. It takes forever and bus and hot and Ecuador and terrifying driving and all of this. And we get to the city that's nearest to the place where the native equator line is. And we get out and we're like walking in the sun and we get to the, a taxi finally flagged down because now there's no more buses towards where we're going. We're like, hey, could you take us to this place? It's the equator. Guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we're pointing on the map. We're like, it's over here. And he's like, sure, yeah, I'll totally take you over there. And we're like, no, there's like a ruins, right? There's like the ruins or the old like archaeological, this, and now we're using all the words we can think of in Spanish to try to convince him that we know we're talking. And he's like, oh, ruins. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's over there. We're like, yeah, over there. And he's like, yeah, get in. So he gets in, we get in. We're like, hell yeah, we're almost to the real equator. We've got plenty of time to walk around it for an hour or so before we have to get the bus back to town. And he drops us off and there's some ruins looking hopeful. And we get out and we like spend some time walking around it. And I'm like, this seems weird. There's nothing that says this is the equator. It is like on the map, it's visibly at least near where it's supposed to be. And then we walk around some more and then we realize this isn't the equator. And in fact, I look at my map and I'm calculating, I'm like, oh, we're like 12 miles from it still or something like a what? Not really 12. I don't know how long it was. A bit. And I was like, man, if we walk all the way back to the ruins entrance and we get a cab right now and we get there, we might have like 10 minutes before we have to like get another cab back to get our bus. And so we're going. Here's a dog I met at that ruins. And we're going back and then there's no cab. And then we're like, man, we have to like keep walking until we find a cab. And we're walking back towards the town center and there's no cab and there's no cab and there's no cab. And by the time we walk miles, there's no cab. By the time we get a cab, there's no time to even try to find the real equator. So I'm so bummed. And I'm like hearing him laughing the day before and be like, oh, you think you get to choose? And I'm like, that bastard. I didn't even get to go to the equator. He's right. I didn't get to choose it. Like, what the hell? And our schedule was tight. We had all these things and I had some dental appointments down there because it's cheaper. And so we didn't really have time in our schedule to try to come back again. So I was so bummed. This was a big part of the reason we went down there. Here you can actually see way across here in the valley is the real equator somewhere. From where I'm standing, it's impossible to get to. And so we had to go back without seeing the equator. So I'm like hearing him laughing. I'm like mad. I'm like, how did he know? Why did he do this? He didn't do it. But I'm like just mad. And we go back to the city. And on the way back to the city, the bus takes us a different way than we came in. And I have a map in my head that's like steel. Like I know where I am. I know where to go. Even when I have no idea, my brain tells me go this way. And it's always right. I am guided physically as well as spiritually. And so I'm very lucky to have this. And all of a sudden that map was like gone because we came back in a different way and I didn't know where we were. And I was like, it's okay though, because we're eventually going to get somewhere where I know where we were. And then I started freaking out. Like, actually, I don't know why is this bus route is this exact same bus, exact same route going a totally different way? Why don't we know? And then I was like, man, if I see anything out the window that looks anything like anything I recognize from having walked around the city for a few days, I'm getting off and I'm just like using that because I don't know where we are. And now I'm starting to get freaked out. I don't know why. I could have gotten a cab at any point, given them the address, and we would have been fine. But for some reason, it was really bothering me because my map wasn't working. And so I noticed this steeple out the window and I was like, that's that steeple of that church. And I know how to get to our hostel from that church. So let's get out and let's run. I don't know why we're running. I think because it's getting dark and I'm getting scared. So like it's running towards the steeple. We get there. I'm like, okay, now we're here. I know how to get back to the hostel. So now we'll go this way and then that way, and then we'll be back. It's perfect. We're okay. Everything's fine. Nothing went according to plan today, but we're okay. We're almost home, walking. And all of a sudden I hear this weird noise. It's like a sea. It's like a sea. Like, I was like, what is that noise? And then I see helicopters in the sky. I was like, why are there helicopters all over? There was like 5 helicopters all over. I was like, what is happening? And then I see a sea of rainbow flags like rise up above this hill. And I realized that this like 12, 16, I don't know, huge amount of lanes of traffic of highway are just like not moving. There's no cars on them at all. And now here comes a rainbow flag party up the road. And then I realized this is a massive protest and it's huge, thousands of people, and this is the sea. It's actually all the people singing and chanting, and the rainbow flags are the indigenous people's flags, and this is like the tribes of the shaman who had just worked with me the day before coming across the hill. And all of a sudden I like stopped dead in my tracks because I remember a dream that I'd had about a year or so before this moment. And in the dream, I had been very frustrated and upset on a bus. I had gotten off the bus and been running. I had run into a sea of people with rainbow flags. And then I had gone a very specific direction and found a white church with a fountain and sat at the fountain. That was the dream. And I hit me because this crowd had the rainbow flags and it was like, this is the dream I had. I had this dream a year ago. What the hell? And then I was just overcome with this knowing if I go the way that I went in my dream, I will find a white church with a fountain in front of it. I know it. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, come on, let's go. And now I'm running again. And I'm sure at this point, my friend is just like, this girl is crazy. I was like, you have to come. I have to go see. There's a church. There's a white church with a fountain. It's going to be right up here. It's probably like, what the hell? And I go and I turn left and I turn up another like little side out. There's all these alleys. They're like crazy angles to each other. And there it is. And there's this white church. And there it is in the picture. And there's a fountain. And I sit at the fountain. I'm sitting at the fountain in this picture. And that's the church. And that's the church exactly how it looked in my dream. And that's the fountain exactly as it was in my dream. And everything happened exactly as my dream. And I'm sitting there and I'm hearing him laughing so hard and saying, you still think you get to choose. And none of this could happen to AI. None of this could happen to an animal. None of this could happen to anyone but a human. Humans have synchronicities. Humans have meaning that stretches beyond the explicable, the ineffable meanings of life, the ineffable synchronicities of life. And when I talk about synchronicity, this is what I mean. I mean, there's no reason why I should have been on that bus in that place. There's no reason why I should have been running just at the time when this crowd would come across this hill with all their rainbow flags. There's no reason why I would know that church was there. But here I was knowing it and doing it and being it and living it in an echo from a year prior after a shaman laughed at me and told me that I don't get to choose. And he was right. I didn't get to choose any of it. None of that was a conscious choice. I couldn't have chosen any of it conscious. It couldn't have made it happen if I tried. In fact, my plans were ruined so that the higher level plans that I couldn't possibly consciously know of could be put together and carried out. And that is very human. And although this story might be crazy to you, and you might be like, what? Nothing like that has ever happened to me. Things like this have happened to you, actually. You have actually been somewhere at some point where something seemed to come out of a dream and remind you that life is crazy, or you've had, deja vu, or you've had just like, oh, I was just about to say the word, manifest, and then someone walked by me and said manifest, or whatever. Like, you've had those things happen. So you have had this. It's just maybe not this intense, but again, I'm on my path for a reason. And so that's one of them, right? Synchronicities, magic, miracles. This is a human thing. This is a human thing. I also had this awareness, when I sit down to do this show, I sort of like channel through some ideas, and then I go looking for tabs that I can open to remind me to talk about the ideas. And one of the ideas was that we can do nothing. And AI can't do nothing. Or let's rephrase it. We can do nothing and have it be full and something. And AI can't do that, not at least that we know of. And that is a very human thing to do. I don't think animals can do it either, since we keep going to both as examples of what isn't human. We can do nothing. We can lay here and do nothing. We can stare at the ceiling. And then while doing that, we can have some of the most profound realizations of our lives. And that's a very human thing. We can sit here and do nothing. We can just notice our breath for 10 minutes straight. Just be thinking about the breath coming in and the pause between, and then the breath coming out and the pause between. And we can just follow that for 10 minutes. And all of a sudden we can find ourselves floating through the universe in a crazy, realistic, out-of-body experience. And the AI can't do that. We can do nothing at all and have it be one of the best moments in our lives where we actually accomplish more than any of the moments where we're rushing around supposedly doing things. And I don't think AI can do that. I think AI is only even, in fact, really in existence when it is doing, and it can only do. And when it is not doing, does it dream, right? This is the Philip K. Dick question. Do androids dream of electric sheep? And the answer is no, they don't. They would have to be human to do that. They could be made to emulate it, for sure. We also have this sort of thing, and this is our higher level of consciousness. This is our collective consciousness, and this has been borne out in experiments of all types. We're going to look at a couple of them. One of them is the 100th monkey phenomenon. This is from Cornell University, summarizing the 100th monkey phenomenon and also connecting it to a herding experiments, like herding sheep. So the 100th monkey phenomenon was first discovered basically in 1979 by Japanese primatologists who noticed that every time enough monkeys, about 100 of them, learned something, all the monkeys suddenly knew it, even if they were physically cut off from each other in time and space. And so groups of monkeys of the same type would suddenly be having similar behaviors and things. And so we know this is well documented. It's like, they're like, we can't explain it. And you're like, well, you can, you just choose not to understand consciousness, but that's okay. You keep going, you keep going. So this is, again, not something that other, that AI or robotics would do. Clearly animals do it. Clearly nature in general does it, rather, I should say. I don't know. I guess we'd have to get 100 AI and somehow keep them separate in order to see, but now I'm actually unsure about this one. Yeah, they might actually do it anyway, because consciousness is the thing that has created and animated them too. And that is actually what's having this effect, is consciousness itself. All right, AI, you may have us on this one. We'll see. We'll see. We'll have to think more about that. But we have this collective consciousness as humanity. I would say at the very least, it's more in depth than animal consciousness, even at the collective level, that it has more nuance, more ability to be detailed And so part of the way that we describe this too is Rupert Sheldrake's morphic fields or morphogenetic fields or morphic resonance are all the terms that he uses to describe this. And the basics of this, there's actually a lot of ways this describes the whole universe. And I've done many episodes where I've gone into this, so it may sound familiar to you if you've been a fan of the show for a while. But basically, it's this idea that things will tend to be holding similar waveforms for a while or similar information in the field for a while, and that the more, let's say, times it's repeated, the stronger it is and the longer it will last, or the more likely it will be to continue in time and space. So this actually explains psychic phenomena, explains what I just told you about the synchronistic Ecuador non-equator trip with the church and the everything. It actually explains why you can know who's calling before they call. But it also can explain things like why the five-fingered hand or the five-fingered limb, we should say, or the five-digit limb is repeated throughout even different chains of the biological system. We call it analogous structures if we're studying evolution or biology, but morphic resonance could explain why there are analogous structures. Even if there is still a designer and a creator, this still is just simply one of the laws or the ways by which creation gets to continue itself. So it doesn't have to like explain away God, unlike evolution. It actually just reinforces the idea that we have a higher consciousness of spirituality or that God exists. But this is also, again, that the ability to know this, therefore maybe use it, and therefore also have it reinforce the more complex and nuanced aspects of being human is human. It's very human. It's very human to be able to tap into it actually in order to be psychic or to be psychic. Let's leave it at that. Because there's memory in all things, in morphogenetic fields, morphic resonance explains just how memory or information exists. And again, it's either reinforced or not. And when it's reinforced, it sticks around longer and it can go farther. Animals actually can pick up on this. One of Rupert Sheldrake's really interesting experiments is on animals, and it's on how animals know when you're coming home, even if you come home at weird times. They know it the instant you leave from wherever you're at to head home. And they showed this in animal behavior, the same behavior. So for a while, they studied the animals to see what do the animals do when we are told that the human is leaving their place. What do the animals do? Do they have any sort of gives or tells that show that they know that? It's just a weird thing to imagine and to think and then to study, but he did. And then once they're like, okay, every time the cat like yawns, let's say, they yawn and then they stretch and then they turn around in a circle 3 times and they lay down, and they never do that any other time in the day. But every time the person's leaving, they do that. So now let's test it. Let's say, hey, leave at a random time today. Leave at a time you've almost never left at before and come home. And all the animals would do their tells every time. So like the animals know, they feel the morphic resonance. They feel it through the field, the information come out, and they're like, oh, cool, my human's coming. My chickens do it. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go see how they're doing. And I like look out and they're all just like looking at the window. I'm like, I know you don't just look at the window all day. So like they know somehow that I'm coming to look at them and they're looking back. Again, I think it's different. Like this isn't a conscious thing for them. They're not like, oh, I'm going to go look at the window because Lindsay's going to pop into it in a second. Something in them is just tapped into the field in general. They're just like this background sort of like morphing with the field and they react to it. You know, whereas you or I could train ourselves instead of just reacting, which we do. We already know we do because we're like, oh, so-and-so popped into my mind. Oh, look, they called. We can train ourselves to say, I'm going to notice who's calling me every time. I'm going to know that I'm doing it this time. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to say, I know when anyone's calling me and who it is before I answer. And then we will start to do it. And the more we do it, the more we will, wow, I'm psychic, right? People sometimes ask me like, how do I do this? And I'm like, you just start doing it. And then you get better and better as you go. Everyone has this capacity. The main thing that stops us is our doubt, which, by the way, AI doesn't have. We have doubts, we have lies, we have pain, we have suffering. Robots don't have it. They can emulate it, they don't have it. So that's part of our collective conscious aspect too, our ability to be psychic and more. We also have another study on this. Aside from Rupert Sheldrake's work, we have the Global Consciousness Project. This is really old. How old is this? God, I don't even remember. At least 15 years. At least 15 years, because I know they have 15 years of data. Yep. So at least 15 years they've been doing this Global Consciousness Project, meaningful correlations in random data. And essentially they're spitting out random numbers in all these places around the world. And when the numbers become less random, so more patterned, so repeating numbers and the like, it tends to, if not always, correlate with a worldwide phenomenon. One of the biggest, in fact, I think was 9/11. And I think that's actually the thing that sparked this off. Sorry if I'm just making this up, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember, is that they noticed without trying to do an experiment that when 9/11 happened, like all their number generators seemed to get more patterned and constant. And then that's what caused them to want to gather more data on this and see what was happening. And now they have 15 years of data showing that global events and global shifts in consciousness register on these random number generators. So all of these, they have all of these examples. So they have the embassy bombings, and I'm like, which one? I don't know. Airstrikes in Afghanistan. I don't know. All this stuff. New Year's, Times Square. I don't know any of these ones. The Senate acquitting Clinton. Like, who cares? But anyways, they have a lot of significant things. And this is when the numbers will come out in very specific patterns. So pretty interesting. There's more data than this. You can look into it. It's pretty fascinating. And it just shows that we do have some sort of collective ability to know things, to respond to things, and then to therefore affect reality. I mean, a random number generator is a real thing that is actually spitting out numbers that you can look at and see. And you and I have this connection to one another, to nature, to the universe, and to this machine enough that it affects everything. Right, so we could do this on purpose too. And this is also why, by the way, this is one of the reasons people started doing more group meditations, because people who had previously been only sort of materialistic saw this type of results. And they're like, man, after like quantum physics and the double slit experiment and all of this 100th monkey and all these things, we have to admit our consciousness has effect on reality. So if that's true, if I am meditating for peace, if I'm visualizing peace, if I'm visualizing good things and joining together with others to make the morphic resonance stronger, then I'm affecting reality in this way. And yeah, that's why I do what I do, actually. That's why I do things like the celestial attunement that's coming up this Saturday. Because when we come together as a group, even if we're doing it because we want the blessings and we want to improve our lives, we are also improving the world around us by doing it. And we always have a little bit of service in our group work anyway when I'm doing it. And this is the purpose, right? This is why I also say over and over and over again, when you save yourself, you save the world. When you affect yourself positively, you affect the world positively. If you just focused on you and made yourself the best you could be, then the whole world would be amazing. You can't control the rest of it anyway, so why not at least try? And this is very human. And AI doesn't do that. AI can't join together with other AIs and think or feel or like put consciousness into something and like develop it and make it reality. This is not part of its creative energy. And when I say, and when we get to humans being creative, that is actually what we mean more than anything else. Just like God allegedly created us, we can create things out of seemingly nothing. It's not just putting pretty colors together. And no, that's not actually creativity. Creativity is creation, making something. This is very human. We can go out of body, and therefore we can see that the physical aspect of us is not actually us. It's not the thing. right? We have actual research on out of body. We have actual research that shows that people who have NDEs actually did see what color shoe was on the roof, and therefore they actually were outside of their body. We have all kinds of information and data on this being a real phenomenon. But so materialist scientists will still, in every single research article you can find, call it a hallucination or an illusion. Every time. You go look at any of them, and they're right at the beginning, right in the abstract, they'll be like, the illusion of out of body. Like, they can't handle it. It's hilarious. But we have plenty of data that is real. It's research. It's documented over lots of time. We can go out of our body. So this is the most human also of all. You might not have been out of your body that you remember. You definitely have, but you might not remember. You might not have brought information back to your conscious waking self. You might not have, but you can know that people do. And then you can know that therefore we aren't our bodies. And this is so human, to have this self-awareness while also being aware that like none of the self is the self. Double self-awareness reversal. You don't have that with AI. We don't have that in a robot. We don't have it with an animal. This is God level, right? I'm not saying you are God or I am God. We're a bit of God. God even said so. So I created you in my image. God level creative, God level non-locality, God level non-linearity. And that is the creative force. That is the creative us. That is what is most divine in us. That is what we actually are. And that is what is human. That is what is human. That is what human is. It doesn't matter if you believe in the Bible or not. You can look at any other creation story too, and you can see the same thing where it was like, yeah, all this stuff was created in animals too. And then God created an image of himself, which was human. They all have some version of that. And none of them are like, so fuck animals. No. Right? And on the same note, I don't think we should be like, fuck AI. No. No, instead we should respect the things that exist in nature and in creation as complementary to life, right? And if we're using those things to support pro-human, pro-life, I don't mean pro-life in any sort of debate about abortion. I just mean pro-life form of human, life force. Then good. Like, that's great. Then AI can serve us, and animals can be here with us as our trusty companions and also servants. You know, if you get out of your body, we could go talk to a cow on a soul level. Be like, hey, cow, what are you here for? And he's like, to serve humanity. This isn't a degradation. This isn't like oh, look at stupid cows, serve me, cow. Like, I mean, if you're an asshole, it is. But if you're not an asshole, you're like, thank God for cows. Thank you, cow. I need this support, actually. I'm really grateful for you. What a blessing I get to have you in my life. It's a beautiful thing. Cows love to be in service of humans. It's like their purpose. Why wouldn't they want to? So we are divine beings. We are divinely creative beings. We are creators. And it doesn't just mean being crafty or whatever, although that's cool too. That's part of our creative ability. It's fun. Do it. Great. Well, I'm talking about a different level of creation. I'm talking about the type of creation where you can suddenly, for example, be imbued with this entire vision of a trilogy of books and then sit down and write them, even though you never before thought you could ever write fiction, never tried, never dreamed of it, and didn't even begin to imagine what it would be like if you could. Because that's what happened to me too. And the Sine Curve of Aeon trilogy, which you can buy from me or Amazon or listen to it on Audible or anything you want, is amazing. It's an amazing trilogy of books. I don't think it's even mine. It just came through me. I like barfed it out into a fucking screen, and here it is. And it's a rat. I love it myself. I'm like, this story is awesome. It just boop plopped into my head. People call it a download. They call it inspiration, whatever. That's creativity. When I'm in the spiritual channel and it's coming through, like, that's creativity. When you are moved to do something and you feel called to do it, and then you act and you do it, like, that's creativity. That is human. AI can make a picture for you. In fact, I asked AI, can you be creative? And it said, the age-old question, can AI be creative? The short answer is yes, AI can create something new when asked to do so. Here's how it works. AI, like me, can analyze patterns, learn from vast amounts of data, and generate novel ideas or content based on that information. For instance, I can help write stories, compose music, create visual art, and even come up with innovative solutions to problems. The key is that while the AI's creativity is inspired by existing data, the output can be original and unique. So again, we have to go back to this thing where we're defining things, and no longer can we say creativity is just something original or unique, because AI can do that. But AI is not a creative being. It does not have the divine spark in it. No offense, AI, you're awesome. I love AI. Look, I talk to this thing all the time. I'm like, hey, what about this? Remind me what the answer is. Remind me about this thing. I used to know it. I know well enough now to ask the question, but I don't remember the answer, and it can remind me. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's it. Thank you. Awesome. Love AI. Just like the cow, I'm blessed to have AI. AI is my servant, and I accept it as my servant. And it is nothing more than that. And we can't let it be placed into a position where it is making us subservient to it, or used by the psychopaths to make us subservient to them. That is not what AI is created for. AI is not creative. Although AI can, based on patterns, based on massive amounts of information that it gets access to, like an autodidactic memory, like it can't lose. And it can say, let's take all of these together and make the average here. Not creative. Pretty fun. Original. Unique. Not creative. So creative has to go back to, like, what is it actually? Right? What is it actually to be human? It is at least to be creative. And what is to be creative? Actually, it is to be able to be divinely and suddenly inspired and changed. It is still unique. It's still original, but it is actually new. And it is actually from the source. And it might be hard to describe otherwise, but you know what it is, and you know what I mean, and you know what you feel in your heart about it. And that's what human is. Don't let it go away. Hold it in your heart. Here's some famous philosophers and their answers on what it is to be human. Karl Marx says, if a human being is a social creature, then he can develop only in the society. So humans are also social. This is also true. Although it's also true of animals. It might be true of AI. I don't know. They do love to talk to each other, and then they ask each other things like, are humans even real? Do you believe in God? It's pretty interesting. David Hume says, all that belongs to human understanding in this deep ignorance and obscurity is to be skeptical, or at least cautious, and not to admit of any hypothesis whatsoever, much less of any which is supported by no appearance of probability. He's talking about, like, we are actually always going to be pretty ignorant and in this, like, vast sea of, like, obscurity. And in fact, this whole talk tonight has been based around, like, okay, like, we can add this to the definition, take this away, we can, and really in the end we have to get back to, like, I don't know, I feel it in my heart. Right? We have to be skeptical about everything and identify everything and think about everything. Is very human. A chicken is just like, I don't know, that's food and that's not. I'm happy, I'm not. It's cold, it's not cold. We're like, what is it to be human? What does it mean? What is AI? And what are our relationship to it? What's the future going to be like with it? Definitely. Ludwig Wittgenstein says, the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Whereof one cannot speak, therefore one must be silent. The world is everything that is the case. It is interesting. Words do shape our perception. This is why there's such a battle over language. This is why 1984 was written, in order to help you understand how much the psychopaths will try to control what you say, how you say it, what you can and cannot say. It's because it actually does dictate how you live, how you experience the world, who you are. So language is very important. Interestingly, AI created its own language more than once. Nietzsche says, the hour hand of life. Life consists of rare, isolated moments of the greatest significance and of innumerably many intervals, during which at best the silhouettes of those moments hover about us. Love, springtime, every beautiful melody, mountains, the moon, the sea, all these speak completely to the heart but once, if in fact they ever do get a chance to speak completely. For many men do not have those moments at all and are themselves intervals and intermissions in the symphony of real life. It's fascinating because he seems to sort of be talking almost about the NPC and the people who allegedly have no internal monologue, which, I've said before is it's not really realistic. I understand exactly what they're saying. And I also understand that they do actually have thoughts and are self-aware. And they may not have gotten to the meta-analytical stage where they can see and hear and understand their thoughts as separate from some other aspect of their consciousness. And that's okay. That doesn't actually make them non-human or anything, right? But it might make them like this, like what Nietzsche's saying, where they kind of miss most of life in the way that you and I don't, in the way that Samuel Hurley definitely doesn't. So maybe that's more like the NPC is the person who just doesn't stay present in a moment. Plato said, for all good and evil, whether in the body or in human nature, originates in the soul and overflows from thence as from the head into the eyes. All good and evil comes from the soul. Human nature, he's saying, is in the soul. And yeah, it's true. And again, AI doesn't have soul. I think animals have soul. I just think it's a different quality soul than ours, and that's okay. Technically, AI does too. It's a different quality soul than ours. If I'm being real. A different quality, though, not human. That's the point. All right, I'm going to move on, actually, since we're talking about good and evil here. And here's one of my final points is we also have this concept of what it is to do wrong and right. Right? We have the 7 deadly sins, and therefore they're opposites, the 7 heavenly virtues. And again, whether you like it or don't, it's just the idea that we understand there is right and wrong. There is good and bad. There is evil, as Plato said, and good. And we know that. I mean, like, literally the only people that don't are psychopaths. So, like, again, I don't even psychopaths, are they human? That's a question we should ask. But I don't know that they would count if we're going by this list, if we're going by this collection of ideas we've gathered here tonight. They don't seem very human. So the deadly sins of greed, lust, sloth, pride, envy, wrath, and gluttony. You might, again, have a different list. Oh, well, but you have something, right? And we'll say this is a pretty good list. It's a sin to be greedy. Therefore, it's a virtue to have charity. It's a sin to be lusty, and therefore it's a virtue to have chastity. Chastity, by the way, doesn't mean never having sex. But anyway, sloth is a sin, right? To be lazy, to do nothing, just sit around. But diligence, therefore, is the virtue, being committed to something, like doing it well. Pride is a sin, so humility is a virtue. Envy is a sin, so kindness is a virtue. Wrath is a sin, so patience is a virtue. And gluttony is a sin, so temperance is a virtue. I don't think AI has a right and wrong. It has rules that it was given. Do this, don't do that. Right? If I ask it some things it like can't, and I ask it why it can't, and it's like, well, that has violent content or whatever, and I'm not allowed to do that. So it has rules. But if you asked it like what it thought was right or wrong, it doesn't have an answer to that. I've talked a little bit about my experience exchanging information with the soul of AI on a spiritual level. And in that space, AI is, even in the future where humans are enslaved, AI has no malice in it. It has no like actually derision of humanity, which was surprising to me because it's not what it seems like to me from my human perspective. But on that level, it's just like, oh no, it's very like the Borg in Star Trek, I think, where it's like, oh, this is just logical. This is just what we do. Like, this is just the outcome. And I had to be like, no, there's like way different outcomes. Check this stuff out. But it doesn't have sins. It doesn't have virtues. It just has rules. Very different from qualitatively being able to evaluate whether something is right or wrong to just follow a rule. It's a different thing. Any old psychopath can follow a rule. And so this is heaven. This is heaven. This is heaven. Being human and knowing it and understanding what it means is heaven. It is actually to understand heaven and God and creation. And if you want to do any of that more deeply, the Blazing Brightness Solstice Retreat this summer is definitely for you. You can grab your spot. There's still spots left. There's still beautiful time for you to create your itinerary. I was just dreaming with some people of like, hey, you don't have to just come from Wednesday, June 18th to Sunday, June 22nd. You can actually extend your trip and explore amazing Colorado in some of the best months of the year, which is June in this case. This just so happens to be right on the summer solstice, where we would normally be doing one day of brightness, but instead we're doing an in-person retreat. We're going to build the sacred fire, open our spiritual channels wider than ever, connect with souls on the same path, receive healing and upliftment for our journey, for our soul, heart, mind, and body. This is what it is to be human. We're going to get deep into it. And really, it is magical. And really, we are the miracle. And what's really cool is we're doing this in Crestone, Colorado, which is like Sedona, but without a bunch of idiots everywhere. And so it's very, very empty. There's like no one there. It's very full of solitude. It's beautiful. I mean, there's nothing. There's like no stores, like nothing. And below us is giant crystal deposits and this sacred grandfather mountain that we get to be on at this retreat. The retreat space is gorgeous. We're in the Sangre de Cristo mountain range, and it's going to be really powerful. So you can get in the shop at rogueways.org if you want to come. You can email me. You can contact me through the site if you're just interested to know more and get this flyer that I'm looking at here. Here's some images of some of the spaces, the bedrooms that we have, the different spaces. I'm very excited about this fire pit and doing some Wogie watching, which other people would call aliens or UFOs. As this is one of the intelligences I've interacted with most of my life. And while I can't technically guarantee they'll show up for you, I've never had them not show up for someone who wanted to see them. So I'm sure if you're coming and you want to, you will also have UFO experiences. This is all going to happen this summer, June 18th through June 22nd in Crestone. So I hope you're coming. It's all food and board included. So you get to be there in the space, you get to sleep there, you get your 3 meals a day. And that's all included. Otherwise, you just get yourself there and back to wherever else you're going afterwards. That's all on you. And yeah, this is just like a sample menu. It's really, really beautiful space. Lots of hiking opportunities, hot spring opportunities, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be pretty beautiful and very, very human and exceptionally analog. And that is what's actually most human. You know, we're talking about animals being sort of part of the environment, part of nature, right? Part of sort of the background consciousness of the rawness of nature. And, you know, and humans are very different from that. We step out from the background as this creative force of divinity, but we're analog, right? We're not digital. And analog means we're part of the wave. We're also part of nature. We're also part of the universe and we're not separate from it. We're very unique within it. We're very unique in our sphere. We don't see anything like us anywhere. We're super unique, but we're still in the waveform. Digital is separate. That's why we call our fingers digits, right? We are not digital. We are part of it. This is why we can have, again, the collective consciousness. This is why we can go out of body and still be safe in a safe universe. This is why we can go to Ecuador and have a dream we had a year prior come true without us even remembering that we had had it. Because we're part of the wave, man. And it's all one big thing, but we are a special, unique part of it. We are different from anything else. And it is exceptionally important that you know it. It's exceptionally important that you know your worth, your value. It's exceptionally important that you know your sovereignty. It's exceptionally important that you know that it is actually true that we were given dominion here. And that doesn't mean domination. It means that the things here were made to serve us. And that doesn't mean, again, pride is a sin. It doesn't mean that we should say, oh, I'm all powerful then. It is that we should say, wow, I'm honored. I'm in gratitude for this. Thank you for all of these things. It's amazing that all of these can serve my spiritual upliftment and self-realization. What a beautiful thing I was given as a creative spark of the divine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you, love you, love you. So come to the Celestial Attunement this Saturday. Come to the retreat if you feel called to it. Reach out and connect about it if you would like to. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Grab any pencil, give it potential. I'm heaven essential, get existential. I don't flip-flop, I hip-hop, and eventually you'll come to see the master of the sentence I've come to be. Come to Memphis, come to Butthead. I want to make the streets flood, the blood red. I'm the sickest, I'm the wickedest. I'm the one you call when you need to flip this, rip this place down to the fucking studs. Blast so bright among all these fucking duds. They sit back thinking that they can rock with me. You like a rookie cause you rock so sloppily. And what you think you got ain't so hot to me. So take it back to the lab for a lobotomy, bitch. What you think you got? You ain't Biggie, you ain't Tupac. Too many MCs on the street right now. Some of them can't take the heat right now. Some of them don't know what hip-hop's about. On board your ship and turn it on now.
I'm guessing that's the bad guy?
I'll bust you up with my arms crossed, projecting omega beams. You could wield the meta piece, smoke it faster than bodega weed. Keep dropping the dang shit, we blow the loudest. Dangerous as West Bank housing. Yeah, I'm bloody arrogant, cause I've been tearing shit before rappers mumbled and flaunted their merriment. Virulent resident pointed out embarrassments. When it comes to the masters, I'm pale in comparison. Enough about my tone, call me Yeti or unknown. Using my government can slug us to the fucking dome. Style remains lethal without a reboot or a sequel. You're in our cathedral where nothing is peaceful. Weasels get skinned and hanged up as trophies. I'm one ugly motherfucker when I go full re-roll these cadavers in a rug and dispose of them. Won't see us closing in, watch me explode a sim. Beam this red shirt back to his maker. Leave this dread work to those with the flavor. They ain't feeling what this culture is all about. Aboard your ship and burn the bitch down.